Because my lifespan was reaching its end, I chose to seal myself within a divine source, focusing my efforts on mastering the Tao of the Emperor. Before entering seclusion, I selected a reputable sect for my daughter, and prepared countless sacred elixirs and divine medicines, providing her with cultivation resources. I even rescued a golden dragon with divine blood to serve as her spirit beast. Most importantly, I sought out a master at the Supreme Realm to act as her guardian, thinking that with the sect's protection, the assistance of natural treasures, the companionship of an ancient mythical beast, and the protection of a supreme expert, she would be safe. I believed that by the day I achieved the Tao, she would have surely stepped into the Saint Realm. Yet, on the day I emerged from seclusion, what I beheld was her broken body and the cruel extraction of her supreme bone. It turned out that the sect had welcomed a heaven-favored daughter, and not only was the entire sect biased toward her, but even the golden dragon and the guardian I had painstakingly sought out had heartlessly forced a breach of their contracts to flock to her side. Seeing my daughter gasping for her final breaths, and observing the radiant, pampered appearance of that girl who had stolen everything, my voice dropped to a chilling low. So, she is the darling of everyone, is she? Then allow this emperor to pamper her in return and see how that fares. At this very moment, upon a desolate sacred mountain within the forbidden void, the mountain, which had long been silent, suddenly erupted with divine light stretching for 10,000 miles, accompanied by the final strike of a heavenly tribulation descending from the heavens. Auspicious clouds gathered in abundance, bringing with them visions of the Kilin, symbolizing this momentous occasion. The harmonious calls of dragons and phoenixes manifested from the void. The black dragon emerged from the depths, while the phoenix sang upon the Chi mountains. Sweet dew rained from the heavens, and golden lotuses sprouted from the earth, filling the sky with countless miraculous visions. The divine source resting atop the mountain began to fracture, inch by inch. I, who had self-sealed within this divine source, slowly opened my eyes at this very moment. As my gaze awakened, the Emperor's might manifested naturally, causing the surrounding void to seemingly freeze in place. 1,000 years have passed. At last I have succeeded. As the tribulation clouds dispersed, glorious divine light descended upon me, and my withered life force was instantly replenished, with overflowing vitality. My silver-white hair was dyed into a brilliant, radiant gold by the heavenly radiance in a mere heartbeat. Simultaneously, a boundless and overwhelming Emperor's might surged forth, engulfing the entire stellar region. After 1,000 years of secluded cultivation, I have finally attained the throne of the Emperor. Feeling the abundant vitality surging within my body, I let out a heavy breath of stagnant energy. Yet before I could even savor the joy, I immediately raised my hand. Slowly opening my palm, a pale red peace talisman lay silently and peacefully within. The moment I saw this peace talisman, a rare ripple of tenderness stirred in the depths of my heart. The reason is none other than the fact that this seemingly ordinary talisman helped me see through the inner demons during the Emperor's tribulation, allowing me to successfully attain the Tao and become an emperor. This talisman was something my daughter, Fan Tuyet, had personally woven and gifted to me before I entered seclusion. Thinking of my daughter, Gu Qingxue, the corners of my mouth involuntarily curled into a smile. In the first half of my life I cultivated the path of ruthlessness, and the world revered me as the ruthless heavenly venerable. But who could have expected that, by a twist of fate, I would have a child late in life? Upon seeing such an adorable daughter, my ruthless Tao heart shattered into fragments. Consequently, I doted on her to the point of indulgence, but it was deeply regrettable that I had lived for too long. My life force was drying up, and my lifespan was running low. I had long since viewed life and death with indifference, but the sudden appearance of my little daughter reignited my desire to live. Thus I decided to stake my life, struggling to contend for the Supreme Emperor realm before I began my seclusion. My daughter had given me this peace talisman. My lifespan had been nearly exhausted, and my Tao heart had already fractured. Theoretically, I should not have been able to overcome the Emperor's tribulation. Yet it was precisely because of her talisman, that pure, sincere fatherly bond, that allowed me to perceive the great Tao. The so-called ruthless great Tao is, in reality, a path that may be indifferent, yet the human heart remains filled with emotion. This talisman was originally meant only as a token of peace, yet through a serendipitous turn of events, it helped me realize the truth. Having attained the Emperor's throne, my Than Tuyet is truly her father's lucky star. At this very moment, I could not wait any longer to see her. Thinking of this, I waved my hand, tearing through space, and rushed toward the Tianji Tao sect that remained in my memory. As I was about to see my daughter again, my heart should have been filled with immense joy, but along the way I felt a deep sense of unease. It was as if something terrible was about to happen. My thoughts immediately turned to my daughter. Yet upon reflection, the profound safeguards I established a millennium ago before my departure provide me with some measure of comfort. Before entering seclusion, I had sought out the most formidable legacy and cultivation tradition, specifically for my daughter. I established it as her sanctuary, selecting a fiercely loyal and powerful protector to serve as her guardian, and even rescued a pure-blooded golden dragon whelp to act as her divine guardian beast. With such layers of protection in place, her safety should surely not be a concern. Thus, rather than worrying about her well-being, I find myself more concerned about the life she has led over these past years. Without me by her side, has she grown accustomed to the solitude? To what extent has she matured? 1,000 years ago, when I departed, my daughter had already reached the spirit-gathering realm. Now that a millennium has passed, with her innate talent, coupled with the vast abundance of heavenly treasures and earthly resources I left behind, she must have surely broken through to the saint realm by now. At the mere thought of reuniting with my obedient daughter, I could not help but increase my pace. Having achieved a breakthrough to the Emperor realm, with every move I make, the laws of heaven and earth obediently submit to my will. With my deliberate intent to accelerate, in a mere half-day, I have traversed more than half of the territory, covering a distance of 10,000 leagues to arrive at the Tianji Dao Sect. Gazing upon the familiar mountain gates of the Dao Sect from my memories, my heart should have been filled with joy and serenity. Yet throughout this journey, a sense of foreboding has persistently haunted me. Especially now, standing before the mountain gates, that sensation has intensified significantly. As an expert of the Emperor realm, the times I have experienced such an intuition can be counted on the fingers of one hand. Could it be that something has happened to Qing Xue? I panicked and extended my hand. The peace talisman bound to the heart of Ran Yi, as I had intended, was once a vibrant crimson. I know not when it had developed a crack. My heart constricted in agony. This talisman was fused into my daughter's very soul. For a crack to appear now, there is no doubt it signifies that she is facing a life-threatening danger, and I truly cannot comprehend how this is possible. The sect master of the Tianji Dao sect, Jizibai, is a close friend of mine. He is a true emperor expert, and with his supervision, combined with the supreme guardians I personally sought for, how could my daughter possibly be in danger? But I had no time left for idle thoughts. I took a single step, tearing through the void, arriving directly at the cave dwelling I had painstakingly prepared for Qing Xue. My pupils constricted sharply. The dwelling that was once grand and majestic had been reduced to nothing but ruins. With no restraint, I unleashed my emperor-level divine sense, letting it blanket the entire area. Finally, within the celestial sky sect's prison, I detected a faint familiar aura. The prison was saturated with dense laws of heaven and earth, while thunderbolts rained down relentlessly each day. This place had always been reserved for sect disciples who committed grave offenses or the most heinous of villains. Yet, it was here that my beloved daughter was imprisoned, confined to the deepest level of the dungeon. Without a second thought or a moment's delay, I tore through the void once more, plunging into the abyss of the prison. At that very moment, the thunderous power was at its most violent peak. Seeing that frail, huddled figure in the corner, a searing pain pierced my heart. This was no longer the innocent, carefree girl from my memories. She who was once so vibrant and lovely, now had hair as brittle as withered straw, her tattered clothes matted into her mangled flesh. Her frame was thin as dry kindling, and the exposed skin was crisscrossed with jagged, intersecting wounds. But what terrified me most was her chest, near the heart, where the torn rags revealed a gruesome hollow void. The skin around the wound was jagged and peeled back, a sight of absolute horror. That was meant to be the place where her supreme divine bone was nurtured and harbored. Yet now that very bone had been cruelly and forcibly excavated by some merciless hand. Her breathing was shallow and erratic, her consciousness fading, with only the occasional tremor of her body, from the sheer agony, proving that she was still among the living. Sensing someone's arrival, her eyes were instantly filled with absolute terror. She clutched her head, curling into an even tighter ball. Please, don't hit me, I was wrong. Seeing my daughter, whom I had cherished above all, reduced to this state, my heart ached with a numbing rhythmic agony as I softly called out, "My sweet daughter, do not fear. It is your father has returned." I collapsed to my knees before her. With a trembling voice, I gathered her gently into my arms, simultaneously releasing my divine sense to assess her condition. I felt that her body, which should have been overflowing with vitality, was now withered and empty. At this moment she was as frail as a candle flickering in the wind. The meridians within her body were shattered, piece by agonizing piece. A heaven-shaking fury erupted in an instant, surging through every limb and bone of my being. Who is it? Who exactly dares to wound the daughter of this emperor? A terrifying pressure instantly exploded from the body of this emperor. That boundless, immense aura crushed the lightning-forged rules of the heavenly prison into fine dust. The deafening sound of the laws shattering echoed throughout the void. My daughter, held within my arms, was completely awakened by this commotion. The moment she saw me, her eyes, previously dull and void of spirit, suddenly ignited with a radiant, joyful light. Father, father. But immediately after, feeling the heart-rending pain, the surprise in her eyes began to dim. Am I truly on the verge of death? To be able to see father, perhaps it is because I miss him too much. So much so that I have begun to hallucinate, yet to see father one last time before I perish. It is enough. Her voice was weak and utterly exhausted, yet carried an indescribable sense of relief. She reached out with trembling hands toward me. Father, have you come to take Shuer away with you? Hearing her words, my nose stung and tears fell uncontrollably. Joer, it is father. Father has succeeded. Father is not dead. I carefully caressed her emaciated face, while slowly channeling a surge of powerful life force into her body. Hearing my words and feeling the warmth spreading deep within her, Gu Qingxue slowly widened her eyes. Father, is it truly you? Her voice was faint, yet filled with a burgeoning hope. I slowly, heavily nodded. Seeing this, the rims of Gu Qingxue's eyes reddened, and a glimmer of vitality gradually returned to them. This is wonderful. It really, truly is you. Father, Shuer has missed you so much. Sobbing, her skeletal hands wrapped tightly around my neck, tears mixing with the grime on her cheeks. They all said, you were dead. I knew you would never die. Cough. Her voice grew increasingly agitated, trembling with such intensity that she finally coughed up fresh blood. In a panic, I rushed to channel another strand of Emperor Qi to protect her heart and soul, which were on the verge of shattering. Tear, what on earth has happened to you? Who exactly dared to treat you in such a manner? And what of Xuan Ye? Has he truly met his end? Why did he not protect you properly? Hearing this, her head slumped down. Father, I am useless. I could not keep Xuan Ye, the guardian you left for me. He ran off to follow another disciple named Luo Ruyan. The hands she had wrapped around my neck suddenly tightened, turning deathly pale from the sheer force of her repression. Hearing this, my heart was filled with profound shock and suspicion. Xuan Ye was a junior whom I had encountered in a perilous realm years ago. I had personally saved his life, and because of that debt of gratitude, coupled with my own formidable strength, he had voluntarily pledged his absolute loyalty to me. Because his devotion was unwavering, I had never been stingy with him. Furthermore, I had spent boundless resources to assist him in his breakthroughs. By the time he reached the supreme realm, it could be said that I had not only saved his life but granted him a rebirth. How could someone who owed me so much commit such a treacherous act and choose to serve another? And furthermore, who exactly is this Luo Ruyan, the one to whom he has sworn his absolute loyalty? She joined the Tao sect about 100 years ago, my daughter explained in a frail voice, as if she could see through my confusion. Upon her arrival, she immediately won the favor of everyone in the sect. The master held her in high regard, treating her like a precious gem. She constantly praised my guardian, claiming how powerful and majestic he was. She then claimed to admire me deeply. Consequently, the master declared that my talent was insufficient, and that I was unworthy of possessing such a powerful guardian. He insisted that I should yield him to someone with greater aptitude. Cough, cough. She began to cough violently. Her voice was laced with I have already reasoned with the master. Zhang Xuanyi is a Tao protector left specifically for me by my father. He does not belong to the sect. Yet, they accused me of being selfish and narrow-minded, claiming I did not value the interests of the sect. Hearing this, a fire of rage surged within my chest. But at that very moment, to discern the truth of the matter, I forced myself to suppress the fury burning in the depths of my heart. Then what of Xuan Ye? As my rightful Tao protector, shouldn't he have stood forward to protect me unconditionally? She offered a bitter, pained smile. It was he who chose to leave of his own accord. He claimed that Luo Ruyan carried the mandate of heaven, making her more worthy than me, and more in need of his protection. Speaking of this, the girl's emotions stirred once more. I told Xuan Ye that we could wait for my father to return, so he could decide whether to stay or go. Unexpectedly, he cursed at me, declaring that my father was already dead. He said I was unworthy of his continued service. He claimed that he only accepted the role of Tao protector to repay the debt he owed my father. Now that my father has passed, his debt of gratitude is settled, and he wishes to seek his own freedom. With that, he turned away, falling into the protective embrace of Luo Yanran. Hearing this, I was consumed by an immeasurable bone-deep wrath. My knuckles tightened, cracking loudly. The favor this emperor bestowed upon him is not something that could be repaid in a mere 1,000 years. That treacherous dog, how dare he? At this very moment, a rage filled my heart, accompanied by an endless sense of torment and self-reproach. Years ago I saved Xuan Ye, and with my own hands I nurtured him until he became a supremacy. Our bond was as immovable as a great mountain. That year before I went into secluded cultivation, he knelt before me and swore a blood oath, promising that he would risk his life to protect my lineage in my stead. I was deeply moved, which is precisely why I did not bind him with a soul contract. Little did I know that such trust would invite disaster upon my child. Seeing the look of self-reproach on my face, my daughter reached out to caress my cheek in sorrow. Father, do not be sad, it is not your fault. Cough, cough. I shook my head in agonizing regret, suddenly realizing something. If Xuan Ye, that dog, has betrayed us, then what of that azure dragon? Hearing this question, my daughter's eyes grew even more desolate and somber. Long Li, he too has chosen to follow Luo Yanran. My gaze turned icy and I demanded urgently, why? On what grounds? How dare that beast commit such an act? Did you and he not previously bind your souls through a contract? My daughter shook her head bitterly. Father, it was Long Li who initiated the severance. He claimed that I already had the entire sect to protect me, whereas Luo Yanyan stood completely alone. And after a moment of silence, he pressed me further. So, my foolish daughter, you simply agreed to dissolve the contract? My daughter suddenly looked up, her voice trembling with agitation. That was the only relic you left me, father. Naturally, I refused, but my master along with my senior brothers and sisters descended upon me, condemning me for being selfish. They insisted that Qianlong had no desire for the contract, and that I was merely using it to forcefully claim the sect's guardian beast. I was truly heartbroken, but I steadfastly refused to nullify the contract. I tried to appease and comfort them, telling them we would decide once my father returned. But to my shock, he looked me in the eye and retorted, claiming that my father was already dead. As she spoke, my daughter's face was drenched in tears. She remained silent for a long time before choking out the rest of her story. He ignored the damage to his origin, suffering a backlash of severe injuries just to forcibly destroy the contract and pledge his loyalty to Luo Yanyan. He tore the contract apart. I whispered those 4 words to myself. My voice was heavy with suppressed violent rage. Long Li was the crown prince of the 5-clawed Golden Dragon clan. At that time the dragon race was embroiled in internal strife, leaving him as a mere hatchling in imminent peril. I had passed by chance and had no intention of interfering in the affairs of another race, but my daughter found him pitiable. Father, please save him, she begged. Only then did I reluctantly intervene to deliver him from danger. At that moment he was gravely wounded, his body a mess of torn flesh and blood. It was my daughter who spent day and night feeding him her own life essence. Only then did she claw him back from the jaws of death. And now that beast has the audacity to tear up the contract. Juer, what of your senior brothers and sisters? Does the entire Heavenly Extreme sect simply watch this unfold with folded arms? Is there not a single soul who stood up to demand justice for you? My daughter's eyes were filled with sorrow and despair. She merely shook her head. They all insisted that the divine beast chose its master of its own volition, claiming it was the will of heaven that cannot be defied. The will of heaven cannot be defied. I silently repeated these 4 arrogant words to myself. Within my eyes, swirls of dark, somber gloom refused to dissipate. Very well, a single phrase about the will of heaven, but what happened after that? Even if those 2 beasts betrayed you, was there anyone in this entire sect who dared to lay a hand on you? Hearing this, my daughter's gaze suddenly turned icy, yet filled with a sense of tragic resignation. Back then, you were driven to madness as you sought to question everyone. Not only because of the betrayal of Xuan Ye and Long Li, but also because of those who claimed that your father had perished. You adamantly refused to believe that I would die, yet they spoke with such unshakable conviction, especially that Luo Yanyan, who mocked you, daring you to strike her, and furthermore, she hurled insults at your father. In a moment of uncontrollable rage, you rushed forward to engage her in combat. But it was clear that she was the one who slandered and provoked you first. And yet the entire sect stood against you. Not one person believed you. They all claimed that you were intentionally harboring malicious intent. In the end, they fabricated charges against you and imprisoned you in the heavenly dungeon. And then, what happened then? Watching my daughter weep in such agonizing silence that she could no longer speak, my heart ached as if it were being carved into pieces, filled with an all-consuming fury. I slowly reached out my finger, gently touching the center of her forehead. Zuer, relax your spirit, do not resist. My divine sense slowly penetrated into my daughter's consciousness. Every event that occurred over the past 1,000 years appeared clearly before my eyes, especially the short, tumultuous century that recently passed. And the more I saw, the more horrified I became. The more I watched, the more my rage surged, to the point that, in the end, my entire body could not stop trembling violently. 100 years ago, that Luo Yanyan had just been initiated into the sect, and relying on the title of Daughter of Heaven's mandate, She immediately garnered, and it was because of this that the harshness began. My daughter, having always been sheltered under my protection, possessed a kind and righteous nature in all her dealings. Therefore she harbored no malice toward her, but rather felt a deep sympathy for her plight. The tragic and pitiful circumstances of Lak Yen Yian stirred feelings of compassion and pity within her. Yet, in return for this kindness, she was met with shameless arrogance and escalating demands. She brazenly schemed to seize my daughter's guardian, and immediately thereafter, resorted to deceitful tricks to lure away and steal her spirit beast guardian. She relied on her influence to manipulate the entire sect into pampering and shielding her. She poisoned the minds of the entire sect, leading them to use their tongues as weapons, spouting insults and slanders against my daughter, eventually forcing her into the wretched confinement of the celestial prison. But matters did not stop there. Knowing that before I departed, I had taken great care to leave behind a vast reserve of cultivation resources for my daughter, she dropped subtle hints to the two traitors, Huyen Diep and Long Li. Those two ungrateful beasts, biting the hand that fed them, shamelessly approached my daughter, and demanded she hand over all the precious treasures and priceless resources that I had set aside for her. They even stooped to a new low, proclaiming that since Lak Yen Nian possessed the destiny of a heaven-blessed maiden, she was obviously more deserving of these resources than my daughter. They deceitfully claimed this was merely an investment in the future, promising that once Lak Yen Yen became world-renowned and reached the pinnacle, she would surely repay my daughter 10,000 times over. But my daughter, possessing a resolute spirit, refused to yield to their demands. And so, those two wretches resorted to violence, using force to seize them by oppression. Then, upon hearing news that Lak Yen Yen had suffered a cultivation deviation and experienced chi deviation, they acted with lawless cruelty, besieging my daughter and ruthlessly carving out her peerless supreme divine bone. All of this was done solely to extract its essence to help that despicable woman, Lak Yen Yen, restore her foundation. Meanwhile, the entire sect viewed this as a matter of course. Not a single soul spoke up to demand justice. Instead, they took turns mocking her. Having witnessed all of these atrocities, the 1,000 years of arduous cultivation I endured to achieve the Tao and become an emperor, were in this moment crushed into nothingness by the sight before my eyes. In the blink of an eye, everything was completely consumed by a raging, vengeful fire. The treacherous crimes of those two beasts are one thing, but what of those ungrateful disciples of the sect? 1,000 years ago, which one of them had not extended their hands to receive my favors and groveled for the benefits I bestowed? They all thumped their chests and swore to look after and protect my Thon Tuyet. Yet now, those ungrateful wretches have such audacity. The surging pressure of my emperor's might could no longer be contained, exploding outward and sweeping away the oppressive aura, shattering the seals of the prison and flipping the celestial dungeon, once hailed as an invincible stronghold, entirely on its head. Outside, 3 figures transformed into streaks of light, tearing through the wind and shouting at the top of their lungs. Who dares to run wild and break into the celestial prison? Are you tired of living and seeking your own death? They dare to be so arrogant in front of me. Before they could strike again, my indifferent gaze swept over them. They dare to threaten this emperor. As soon as the words fell, a terrifying pressure surged forth, crushing down upon the 3 of them. In the next instant, they felt as if an ancient divine mountain had collapsed onto their backs, forcing them to kneel onto the ground. They could not even lift their heads. Senior, we were wrong. We did not know you were present here. That is right, Senior. This is merely a misunderstanding. There is no enmity between us. We hope you can be the bigger person and overlook our insolence. Hearing the words of the lead elder, my voice was filled with cold mockery. No enmity, you say? Elder Liu, lift your head and look at who stands before you. Can you truly say there is no feud between us? Following my command, the lead elder Liu Yuntian raised his head. The moment he beheld my face, his pupils constricted violently. Wu Qing, Tianzun, you are not dead? Have you successfully attained the Tao? How could this be possible? Liu Yuntian's voice was filled with horror and disbelief. I lowered my eyes slightly. What is it? It seems you were quite eager for this emperor to perish. Hearing my icy tone, Liu Yuntian trembled in fear. No, that is not what this lowly one meant. It was Xuanye Jizun and the divine beast Long Li who said so. Upon hearing those 2 names, the fury in my heart erupted, and a terrifying aura crushed the 3 of them instantly, snapping the meridians throughout their bodies. Why would they assume this emperor had perished? Ignoring the injuries racking his body, Liu Yuntian wiped the blood from his mouth and hurriedly explained. It is because the divine beast Long Li perceived that the soul contract between it and the young miss had been severed, and furthermore, Xuanye Jizun could no longer sense your aura. Hearing these words from Lu Yuntian, I could not help but laugh coldly, while a realization dawned within me. During the time before I attained the Tao and became emperor, I could truly be considered to have died once. The emperor tribulation at that time was far too devastating. The heavenly lightning tribulation destroyed my physical form, while the inner demon tribulation lay in wait to annihilate my soul. I was but a single step away from total spiritual extinction, yet on the brink of life and death, a faint light from a protective talisman shielded me. Using my final remnant of divine consciousness, I seized this opportunity to undergo a nirvanic rebirth, thereby gaining a new life. To achieve the Tao and become an emperor, no wonder I wondered where those two beasts found the audacity to betray me. So it was because they thought I had perished, and no one remained to suppress them. Good, very good. Seeing me furious yet completely unharmed, and witnessing my daughter covered in wounds beside me, how could Elder Lu not understand what was unfolding? I returned as an emperor, only to discover my precious daughter had been bullied to this extent. When a great emperor erupts in anger, surely the ensuing calamity would leave millions of corpses in its wake. Elder Lu hurriedly kowtowed, attempting to justify himself. Exalted Wu Tianzun, this matter regarding the young miss has nothing to do with me. This was all the doing of Xuan Ye Jizun and the divine beast Long Li. In truth, it has not the slightest connection to me. Hearing this, my voice grew cold, brimming with unbridled rage. It has nothing to do with you? Perhaps you did not personally orchestrate these events. But you forced my daughter to consume fodder and filth. Do you call that having nothing to do with you? Within Qingshua's memories, although Liu Yuntian did not personally participate in harming her, he had received countless favors from me in the past. Yet he fed my daughter nothing but refuse. He is truly courting death. Heavenly Tianzun, you cannot blame me. This was all at the behest of Xuan Ye Jizun and the others. His words were cut short, for I had flicked a finger to suppress him. You have something more to say? Save it for when you reach the depths of hell. My voice was as cold as ice and snow. The Emperor's aura surged forth violently, instantly crushing the three of them into a pool of blood. I slowly reached out, grasping the escaping souls of the three. Thinking of what they had done to Qingshuo, the fires of fury blazed within my heart. You all deserve to die. As my words fell, my hands squeezed shut with merciless force. The three of them were instantly reduced to nothingness. Father, father, Qingshuo whispered, her voice laced with anxiety as she caught the murderous glint in my eyes. I bowed my head and offered her a gentle smile. Be at peace, Shuer. Your father is here. My voice was tender, yet it carried an underlying chill that could pierce bone. Your father has returned, and from this day forth, no one shall ever bully you again. Those who oppressed you, and those who stood by with cold indifference, I shall make them pay 1,000, nay, 10,000 times over. I shall force the entire Tianji Dao Sect to be buried alongside the suffering of your past. I carefully lifted my daughter into my arms. At this moment, she was nothing but skin and bones. She felt as light as a feather, a realization that sent a pang of agonizing grief through my heart. My imperial might erupted, causing the heavens to tremble as terrifying bolts of lightning, thick as water barrels, crashed down and leveled the entire celestial prison into a wasteland. Such a cataclysmic disturbance could not be hidden from the elders of the Tianji Dao sect. They transformed into streaks of light and surged toward the scene. I carried my daughter, stepping out from the sea of thunder, one stride at a time. By now the area outside the celestial prison was swarmed by elders and disciples from various halls. The moment they caught sight of Gu Qingshuo, the crowd erupted in an uproar. It is her. How did she manage to get out? Was she not supposed to be repenting in the deepest depths of the celestial prison? Some powerful expert must have intervened to destroy the celestial prison, allowing her to escape by sheer luck. And who is that young man? Why have I never seen him within the Tianji Dao sect before? Who knows? Likely some common scoundrel she lured from the outside to rescue her. Look at her wretched state. She used to seduce the Xuanye Supreme and steal the divine beast Long Li. Now, hearing these slurs, I looked at the many disciples who had once received kindness from my daughter, yet now stood in the crowd with faces full of disdain. Though her expression showed pain, my presence acted as a soothing balm. She stubbornly retorted. Back then, it was clearly Luo Yanyan who stole my guardian and my golden dragon. Hearing this, the female disciples all voiced their contempt. If you lack the ability to retain the Xuanye Supreme and Lord Long Li, that is one thing. Yet you have the audacity to shift the blame onto Saintess Luo? Indeed, Saintess Luo is the daughter of destiny, 1,000 times more exceptional than you. It is heaven's will for a divine beast to choose her. For the Supreme to follow her is only natural law. If he does not follow her, is he supposed to follow a piece of trash like you? My daughter's face turned deathly pale, but her fingers tightened their grip on my robes. Experiencing this thousandfold condemnation firsthand, I no longer have any doubts. I fully understand the humiliation my daughter has endured over the past 10 years. They are truly seeking their own deaths. I cast my gaze upon the two who had just hurled insults at me. The divine light within my eyes gathered, then suddenly condensed. Bang! Bang! Their bodies cracked inch by inch before erupting into a gory mist, leaving everyone present stunned by the spectacle. This sudden turn of events left them trembling in shock. They could not help but fix their eyes upon the two who had just met such a tragic end. Although they were not among the peak experts of the Tao sect, they still possessed the cultivation of the Divine Palace realm. Yet I had slain them both with nothing more than a glance. Your Excellency, while your strength is indeed formidable, you must not kill so recklessly. Your actions here are without a doubt a blatant disregard for our Heaven Extreme Tao sect. The Saint Realm Elder, leading the group, stepped forward to threaten me, yet my expression remained indifferent, neither moved by joy nor sorrow. Locking on to him with my divine sense, I flicked my finger. An array of destructive sword energy coiled around my fingertip, piercing directly through the glabella of that Saint Realm Elder. With this single strike, my momentum was like a bamboo being split. I did not merely pierce his physical body, but completely annihilated his soul. Seeing their strongest elder decimated in a mere heartbeat, the crowd fell into a state of panic. They scrambled in every direction, desperate to flee. Just as I prepared to move and suppress them all, a dragon's roar echoed, resounding to the very heavens. Moments later, a massive, brilliant golden shadow soared in from the horizon. The dragon's body coiled through the air, its golden scales shimmering dazzlingly under the sun. Who is it that dares to act so presumptuously within our Tao sect? As the voice faded, the golden dragon descended to the ground, transforming into a graceful young woman. It was clearly the guardian divine beast I had once chosen for my daughter. Long Li, it is truly her, Lord Long Li. We are saved. Has Lord Long Li achieved a breakthrough to the peak of the Saint Realm? She is but a single step away from the Supreme Realm. She is truly worthy of being called a heaven-mandated divine beast. We implore Lord Long Li to take action immediately and suppress this ignorant fool who knows not the height of the heavens or the depth of the earth. Hearing this, Long Li turned her head to look at me, but upon spotting Thon Tuyet, a flash of disgust crossed her eyes. She had just opened her mouth to speak, but suddenly, upon meeting my eyes, devoid of even a flicker of emotion, she froze almost instantly. Atsi felt her soul tremble, and in a state of shock and uncertainty, she cried out, "Who are you?" I narrowed my eyes, my expression indifferent. A faint cold smile curled upon my lips. "You beast. 1,000 years have passed. Do you not even recognize this emperor anymore?" At these words, Long Li was so struck with terror that she collapsed to the ground. You are the heartless celestial sovereign. How is this possible? Did you not already perish? Why have you returned in such a youthful form? Could it be, have you successfully attained the Tao? Her voice was laced with utter bewilderment and extreme dread. I offered no explanation, merely extending a finger and pressing it downward toward her. In the next instant, the pressure of heaven and earth descended. It shattered her bones inch by agonizing inch. Forcing her to kneel before me, my voice turned bone-chillingly cold. "You wretched creature. You are the guardian divine beast of Qingshui. How dare you cast aside our pact to serve outsiders, and further conspire with them to harm this emperor's own daughter? Your audacity knows no bounds." Hearing this, Long Li wiped the trail of blood from the corner of her mouth, lifting her head with a defiant glare. "A guardian divine beast pact?" She let out a harsh laugh. "I am the crown prince of the five-clawed golden dragon lineage. With a status so noble, how could I ever serve as a mere guardian beast to a lowly human? It was merely when I was at my weakest that you deceived me into binding myself to your daughter. On what grounds do you believe that a trivial act of saving my life would entitle you to control this crown prince for an eternity? Keep dreaming." Seeing Long Li's unbridled fury, my daughter wept in agony. "Long Li, I have always treated you with sincerity, and I even saved your life. How could you think of me and my father in such a way?" Long Li scoffed. "Who are you putting on this hypocritical performance for? You people are truly despicable. Did I ever beg you to save me back then?" Hearing Long Li's words, not only my daughter but I myself was so enraged that I could feel my blood boiling. If my daughter had not been so excessively kind-hearted, this beast would have undoubtedly perished long ago. Had my daughter not spent her days and nights nourishing it with her own vital essence, it never would have survived. Nor would it have grown to reach its current standing. Now this ungrateful wretch, instead of showing gratitude, dares to berate my daughter as base and lowly. Very well. My gaze darkened as I slowly stepped toward Long Li. Sensing the unconcealed killing intent in my eyes, Long Li felt a surge of terror in its heart. "What do you intend to do?" A cold, chilling smile curled at the corners of my mouth. "You vile beast. Had I not saved you all those years ago, you would have perished long ago. Since you claim you no longer require my salvation, then pay the debt with your life. I slowly extended my hand and clenched my fingers into the void, gripping the air toward Long Li. Long Li felt a sudden suffocating pressure, as if an invisible gargantuan hand had seized its throat and hoisted it into the air. Release me. I am the Crown Prince of the Dragon Clan, a heaven-mandated divine beast. Do you truly dare to kill me? I let out a mocking, derisive laugh, then slowly tightened my grip. Crown Prince of the Dragon Clan. Heaven-mandated divine beast, in my eyes, you are nothing more than a pathetic insect. Your greatest purpose was merely to provide emotional solace to my daughter. But now that you dare to bite the hand that fed you, you deserve death. Sensing the murderous intent in my words, Long Li finally realized that I truly intended to kill it. It struggled desperately, but all in vain. On the precipice of life and death, it remembered that I have always been doting toward my daughter. So it hurriedly turned its head, looking toward my daughter in my arms, and labored to choke out the words, "Qing Qing Shui, I was wrong, save me." Hearing this, my expression shifted slightly, fearing my daughter might soften her heart and forgive it. But fortunately, my daughter merely looked at it with icy indifference. Save you, Long Li, do you remember? Back then, when you stripped me of my Dao bone and cast me into the celestial prison to be tormented by heavenly lightning, I too begged you thousands of times to save me. To spare me, but did you ever save me? Did you ever spare me? All of this is the harvest of the seeds you have sown. You vile beast, you deserve to die. Hearing my daughter's harsh rebuke, I finally let my guard down completely. When it is time to be ruthless, one must be ruthless. She is indeed worthy of being the daughter of me, the heartless emperor. Without a moment's hesitation, I reached out and snapped Long Li's neck.
No.
Long Li shrieked in agony, unable to maintain its human form any longer. Its body shifted back into its true form, that of a giant dragon. Paying no heed to its desperate cries, I summoned my imperial weapon, the heartless sword, and piece by piece, began to strip the scales from its draconic hide, before proceeding to flay its skin and extract its tendons. You are a devil. What is it that you truly want? The Dragon Clan has always been arrogant, yet here it was, stripped of its scales and flayed of its tendons by my hand. Long Li felt a humiliation greater than anything it had ever known. It wished for nothing more than the sweet release of death. But suppressed by the sheer force of my imperial might, it found its state worse than death itself. It could not even find the mercy of a quick end. It could only glare in horror as I carved its draconic body into small pieces and tossed them directly into my imperial artifact, the heaven-swallowing cauldron. Father, are you doing this for me? Qingshu asked, her eyes wide and full of innocence. I smiled at my daughter in my arms, answering her while casually casting a purification spell to keep us clean. Be good, Shuer. Your body is far too weak right now. You need to consume something to nourish yourself. Floating in the void, Long Li's soul heard my words and finally understood my intentions. In that moment, its humiliation reached its absolute zenith, and it roared at me, "You despicable human. You actually dare to consume the flesh of this crown prince? Do you not fear the vengeance of the true Dragon Clan? Damn you, if you have the ability, then kill me." Hearing this, I merely smiled, pouring in a 1,000-year-old spirit spring, adding a few stalks of archaic spirit grass, and tossing in a 10,000-year ginger king. For every curse it screamed, I added another precious medicinal herb to the pot. By the time the heaven-swallowing cauldron suspended in mid-air was filled to the brim with these heaven-sent treasures, the imperial flames roared to life, and soon an intoxicating fragrance permeated the entire Tianji Dao sect. Even the disciples of the Tianji Dao sect could not help but swallow their saliva in desire. Come, my good daughter, open your mouth. I reached out and served 2 pieces of dragon meat to my daughter. The young girl paused for a brief moment, but shortly after, she obediently opened her mouth to take a bite. An expression of instant delight flashed across her eyes. Ah, it is delicious. Thank you, father. If it is to your liking, then eat a little more. I stroked her head with great affection. Within the void, Long Li was still howling in a maddened frenzy. To avoid disturbing my daughter's appetite, I utilized the laws of sound to directly silence the commotion in that space. Having finished, I finally turned to face the remaining disciples of the Tianji Dao sect present at the scene. Sensing my gaze, those Tianji Dao sect disciples were instantly struck with terror. Sen, Senior. Their voices trembled, unable to even utter a complete sentence. Just moments ago, they had attempted to flee, but all were shackled in place by my emperor's might. Because of this, they had witnessed everything. I had dared to directly suppress their sect's guardian beast, and even proceeded to skin it and pull its tendons. Now I was calmly cooking its meat to eat in broad daylight. More terrifying to them than the consumption of the beast was the name I once held. The ruthless heavenly venerate. Among them were those who had joined the sect 1,000 years ago, and those who arrived a millennium later, but regardless of who they were, all had heard the legends of me. the ruthless heavenly venerate. Cold and heartless, reaching the peak of the Tao through slaughter, they had all believed I was dead. Yet not only was I alive, but I had taken another step forward to successfully perfect my Tao. Thinking of the heinous acts they had committed against my daughter, the fear within their hearts surged uncontrollably. They hurriedly knelt and kowtowed, weeping as they admitted their faults and begged for mercy. Faced with this spectacle, I only offered a cold smile. If you knew this day would come, why act as you did before? I raised my hand, and as if crushing mere ants, I annihilated them one by one. Yet, I did not kill them completely, for to end their lives so easily would be far too merciful. I extracted their souls and imprisoned them within the void. Then, I imparted to my daughter a marvelous cultivation technique I had obtained from an ancient secret realm, the heaven-swallowing demonic art. My daughter possessed innate brilliance, and with my guidance, she grasped this technique with remarkable speed. Jouer, these people have humiliated you to the point of profound suffering. Now, contemplating the terrifying nature of the heaven-swallowing devil art, my daughter initially felt a flicker of hesitation. But upon hearing my words, and recalling the hardships of the past 100 years, her gaze grew cold and resolute. She reached out her hand, immediately beginning her journey of devouring. I stood nearby, leisurely savoring dragon meat while guarding her against any interference. I know not how much time had passed, but by the moment, my daughter successfully refined over a dozen soul fragments. The top-tier experts of the Heavenly Pole Tao Sect finally rushed to the scene. Looking at the 18 saints and 7 Supreme Realm powerhouses before me, my expression betrayed not a shred of surprise. When I made my move earlier, I did not suppress my aura at all, precisely because I intended to lure them here. But just as I prepared to begin the purge, a graceful figure darted across the horizon toward us. And behind her, a man in black robes with an immensely powerful aura followed in her wake. Feeling the malevolent, heaven-defying aura radiating from the woman, the moment I caught sight of their faces, my spirit was ignited with excitement. The pair was none other than the destined daughter, Luo Yanran, and Xuan Ye, the man I had personally selected to be my daughter's protector. Seeing them, I narrowed my eyes slightly. Excellent. This saves this emperor the trouble of hunting them down one by one. Before I could even speak, Luo Yanran took the initiative, screaming at me in a fury. How dare you slaughter Xiao Yu and Xiao Long Li, and then cold-bloodedly cook their flesh for a meal? Are you truly so eager to court death? She glared at the dragon meat stew boiling in the cauldron, then gritted her teeth and spoke to the man behind her. Brother Xuan Ye, kill him for me. Hearing this, Xuan Yi instinctively prepared to lunge, but upon catching a clear look at my face, his expression froze in midair. Who are you? His tone was identical to that of Long Li just moments ago, filled with shock and uncertainty. Hearing this, I merely lifted my eyes slightly, let out a cold laugh, and swept my sleeves, unleashing a supreme imperial pressure that surged outward like a tidal wave. The elders and disciples who had just arrived were instantly forced to the ground, pinned by the crushing force. What is the matter? 1,000 years have passed. Have you all forgotten this emperor? The ruthless supreme. One of the ancestors, refusing to believe his eyes, rubbed them in disbelief. How could he possibly be here? 1,000 years have passed, yet he is still alive. Sensing the terrifying aura radiating from me, the expression of rage on Luo Yanyan's face vanished in an instant. She furtively hid behind Xuan Ye. At this moment, Xuan Ye was also terrified by my overwhelming pressure, yet he still stood his ground to protect her and spoke. The heartless heavenly venerate died long ago. Who exactly are you? Why do you remain here, masquerading as a ghost? A mocking smirk curled on my lips. Ignoring his question, I merely moved my consciousness. A lightning whip, shimmering with violet gold hues, materialized in my hand. The moment he laid eyes on the whip, Xuan Ye trembled in dread. Terror seized him. That is the heartless immortal whip. You are truly Gu Wuqing. How is that possible? It is clear that you are already dead. This whip was a treasure I once used to punish traitors, deliberately refined into a holy weapon. Once struck, the pain tears through one's very soul. In the past, Xuan Ye had witnessed me using this whip to discipline turncoats. Without exception, every one of them suffered agony beyond description. He had always believed me dead, but now, I had drawn the very weapon that once haunted his nightmares. I am dead, you say? Then who will punish an ingrate and a traitor like you? Who will make you pay this blood debt? My voice was bone-chillingly cold. Thinking of what Xuan Yi had done to my daughter, the fury within me became impossible to suppress. I swung the whip, delivering a ruthless strike directly into Xuan Yi's chest. Although Xuan Ye is hailed as a young supreme, he stood no chance against my unbridled, merciless wrath. He did not possess even the slightest strength to resist. A miserable scream pierced the air as Xuan Ye was sent flying backward by my strike. like a kite with a broken string, crashing through over a dozen immortal stone pillars, before slamming into a binding pillar and finally coming to a halt. Clutching his chest, now a mangled mess of blood and flesh, his eyes were filled with profound terror as he looked at me, blood continuously spilling from the corners of his mouth. He collapsed with a heavy thud, kneeling prostrate upon the ground. Heartless Venerate, this is all just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, you say? My gaze was cold as ice. Before I entered seclusion, you swore an oath before me, pledging to protect my daughter for the rest of your life. Yet, look at what you have done. Not only did you fail to protect her, but you also allowed outsiders to bully her. In the end, you personally held her down and gouged out her supreme divine bone while she was still alive. You call this a misunderstanding? Xuanye's face turned deathly pale, and he scrambled to offer excuses. You cannot blame me, it was Qingshui's own doing. She was jealous of junior sister Yanran, so she deserved to be punished. Furthermore, she insulted and assaulted Tian Ming. If she were not punished, she would have brought about a heavenly calamity. Everything I did was for her own good. For her own good, you say? I let out a chilling laugh. Plundering her resources was for her own good. Imprisoning her in the heavenly dungeon was for her own good. Gouging out her supreme bone was also for her own good. 5 years ago, I exhausted my own blood and essence to save your life, and spared no effort to find countless resources to help you break through. Is this how you repay me now? You dare to humiliate my kin. Do you truly wish to court death? My tone carried bone-chilling killing intent. With every word, I lashed out with my whip, striking Xuanyi repeatedly. The force caused his flesh to tear and blood to spill with every strike, until I had shattered every bone in his body, and his meridians along with them. Seeing Xuanyi reduced to a blood-soaked mess, the infernal rage within me finally began to subside. Once I had finished, I turned my gaze toward the woman, cowering in fear behind Xuanye. You are Luo Yanran? Hearing my sudden inquiry, Luo Yanran trembled violently in terror. Yes, senior. Do you have any instructions for me? My lips curled into a cold smile. I hear you are the darling of the entire Tianji Dao sect. Hearing this, Luo Yanran replied in a voice filled with trepidation. I would not dare claim such a title. It is only because the elders and my fellow disciples grant me favor. I am merely fortunate to have received their affection. Before I could speak, Xuanye, who understood my nature all too well, struggled frantically to climb to his feet. Great Master, Yanran carries the mandate of heaven upon her shoulders. Please. Over a dozen supremes had just descended. Along with the sages and clan elders, all of them clamored in agreement. Indeed, Great One, this young girl is ignorant of the ways of the world. We beg for your magnanimity to spare her. Observing the tense expressions of Xuanye and the clan elders shielding Luo Yanyan, I could only feel a sense of ridicule and sorrow in my heart. I turned my head to look at my children, their bodies riddled with wounds, and then back to Luo Yanyan, who was being protected by the crowd. Her appearance was still radiant and blooming with health. Haha, so this is what you call being favored. Then allow this emperor to bestow some favor of his own. My voice was low and resonant, leaving the crowd no time to react. I thrust a palm strike downward, the power of my divine essence surging like a tidal wave. It instantly suppressed Luo Yanyan, forcing her to collapse to her knees on the spot. Xuanye dragged her heavily wounded body, rushing to embrace Adi in deep concern. Those clan elders at the Supreme Realm also glared at me with fury in their eyes. Ruthless one, the Saintess Luo is the pride of our sect, and furthermore, she is the heaven-mandated daughter of this world. If you truly kill her, you will surely face heavenly retribution. I let out a cold laugh. What does it matter that she is your sect's saintess? Does this emperor look like someone who fears some pathetic heavenly retribution? I pointed my finger directly at the sky, my tone filled with utter contempt. Why don't you ask the heavens if they dare to punish this emperor? The sky, which had been churning with thunder and lightning, suddenly fell silent the moment my indifferent gaze swept across it. The calamity clouds that had veiled the sky vanished in an instant, and the heavens cleared, leaving only a gentle breeze in their wake. Witnessing this scene, the expressions of those supreme elders turned deathly pale. With eyes widened in disbelief, they never expected that a single glare from me could disperse the tribulation clouds. Having finally sensed the terrifying depths of my power, they each lowered their heads, cowering in silence like frightened quail. I paid them no mind, turning my gaze back to Luo Yanyan. Though she appeared truly wretched, in reality, her body had suffered no significant damage. To kill her just like this would be far too merciful. Therefore, I had controlled my strength with absolute precision, inflicting agonizing pain upon her without ending her life immediately. I intended for her to experience every ounce of suffering my daughter had endured, slowly and completely, before her end. With that thought, I stepped slowly toward her. I gently brushed my hand across her exquisite face, the face stolen from my daughter. You forced her to endure 100 years of torment. Tell me, how should I show my favor to you, Lock-in Hien? Lock-in Hien was instantly gripped by terror, tears and snot streaming down her face. Senior, spare me. It was not my intention. It was Huan Diep and Long Lei who clung to me of their own volition. Every debt has its debtor. This is all they're doing. If you seek vengeance, take it out on them. It has nothing to do with me. Upon hearing this, Huan Diep's expression turned utterly vacant as he looked toward Lock-in Hien, while the soul of Long Lei, suspended in the void, trembled violently. With wide, disbelieving eyes, man and dragon alike felt a sharp, piercing pain in their hearts, as if they were being shredded apart. They had never imagined that the person they had willingly pledged their loyalty to would discard them like mere pawns the moment danger arrived, without a hint of hesitation. Hearing her words, my perception of this so-called daughter of heaven was refreshed by her sheer shamelessness. It has nothing to do with you? I let out a cold laugh, lifting my foot and stomping heavily onto her chest. That was precisely the spot where she had fused with my daughter's supreme divine bone, using seductive words to bewitch the guardian of another, forcing a blood pact upon Thon Tuyet's guardian divine beast, plundering every resource I left behind for her, crafting schemes to frame her and cast her into the celestial prison, and finally tearing out her supreme divine bone. And you dare call this nothing to do with you? The sickening sound of ribs shattering echoed through the air, followed by Lock-in Hien's blood-curdling screams. I showed no mercy. On the contrary, I increased the pressure beneath my foot, directly crushing her chest cavity. Realizing that I truly intended to kill Lock-in Hien, the Supreme Clan elders finally gritted their teeth and summoned the courage to speak. Merciless sovereign, we implore you to show some leniency, where it is possible. Lock-in Hien is the saintess personally appointed by our old ancestor. If you kill her like this, the old ancestor will not be pleased. Hearing the veiled threat hidden in the elder's words, I let out a mocking laugh. You have just reminded me of something. I turned my head toward the ancestral grounds of the Tianko Dao Sect. Old man, what is the meaning of hiding in the shadows and watching this play? Get out here and face this sovereign at once. As my words fell from the depths of the Dao Sect's ancestral grounds, a majestic figure heaved a soft sigh, tearing through the void as he stepped forth. He wore tattered Taoist robes, his hair silver and his demeanor possessing the grace of an immortal. It was none other than the old ancestor of the Tianko Dao Sect, and my former close friend from days of old. Tianko, why do you hide and fear meeting me? Are you frightened by my return? I spoke, my voice dripping with cold, merciless mockery. Tianjizi's expression stiffened. Brother Wuxin, that is not the case. I have only just awakened myself. Regarding his sophistic excuses, I naturally did not believe a word of it, but I had no leisure to argue with him, and immediately unleashed a palm of suppressive pressure. Get down here and speak. With the might of an emperor, I descended, the sheer aura slamming Tianjizi from the heavens directly into the earth. As the dust cleared, Tianjizi stood up with an incredibly unsightly expression. Brother Wuxin, what are you doing? I offered a cold laugh. What do I intend to do? Do you truly not know? Before I left, I entrusted you to look after my flesh and blood with care, yet you know exactly what transpired. Are you not clear on that in your own heart? Upon hearing this, Tianjizi feigned shock. What on earth has happened? What have I done? A Supreme Clan elder hurriedly stepped forward and recounted every detail of the bullying Qingxue had endured within the Tianji Dao sect. Upon hearing the tale, Tianjizi's eyes flashed with thunderous rage. The pearl in his hand was crushed into dust. You are truly bold, bullying the one under my protection. Are you seeking death? He raised his hand, unleashing a terrifying divine ability that instantly reduced the ringleaders of the harassment into pools of blood. Having finished this, he looked at me with an awkward expression. Brother Wuxin, I was completely unaware of any of this. I have been in secluded meditation within the ancestral grounds. It was all the doing of those disciples acting on their own accord. Not knowing the situation is, in itself, your greatest crime. My eyes narrowed slightly. With a flick of my hand, I struck Tianjizi directly across the face. Before I departed, you promised me you would take good care of my flesh and blood, and that you would absolutely not allow her to be bullied within your Tianji Dao sect. Yet look at the situation now. After receiving so many benefits from this emperor, now that trouble has arisen, you tell me you were in seclusion and knew nothing of it. Do you take this emperor for such a fool? Moreover, for a transcendent, you think I am unaware of what you are plotting, nurturing a girl, gifted with the heaven fate constitution? Hearing my words, Tianjizi's expression flickered, though he quickly regained his composure. Wu Qing, I do not understand what you are implying. We have been acquainted for so many years. How is it that I have only now realized you are such a hypocrite? Seeing his act of feigned ignorance, I could only feel a profound sense of sorrow. By cultivating the girl with the heaven fate constitution, you are merely waiting for her to reach the quasi-emperor realm, so that you may devour and refine her, absorbing the destiny upon her to borrow the strength of the heaven fate, to break through and claim the title of emperor. Are you not? It is for that very reason that you protect her so fiercely, even indulging her every whim. When she set her sights on Long Li, you even sacrificed your own life essence to help her sever his contract, did you not? When she had a conflict with my daughter, you hinted to your disciples to show her favoritism, did you not? You even diverted the resources I left for my daughter to provide for Luo Yanyan. All of this was to ensure her mind remained clear of distractions, so that her cultivation would progress at an unparalleled speed, was it not? You intended for her to grow into the perfect cultivation vessel. At first, you were hesitant because you feared I was not yet dead, so you acted with caution and restraint. But later, upon learning the news of my demise through those two wretched souls, Ling Li and Xianye, you no longer felt the need to act, did you? You stole my daughter's supreme godbone and grafted it into Luo Yanyan's body. Do you dare claim that these actions were not done at your secret instigation? Had you not given the order, I do not believe those ants in your sect would have dared to act, to commit such cruel and vicious acts against my daughter. I have seen through all of this by witnessing the memories of the injustices and oppression she endured for these past 100 years. Your conscience is truly beyond redemption. Hearing my sharp string of accusations, Tianjizi was utterly unable to formulate a defense. His complexion turned as dark as the bottom of a charred pot, and he remained silent for a long time. It is true, Brother Wu Qing. Everything was indeed done under my secret direction. I was temporarily led astray by demonic impulses. It is my fault. I apologize, brother. But things have already reached this point. Fortunately, Qing Xuexiannu has not suffered any irreparable harm. How about this? I am willing to offer 3 drops of chaotic divine liquid as compensation. Look here, his voice suddenly choked off, for I had struck out with a palm that shattered space itself. Compensation. I will show you compensation. As soon as the words left his lips, Tianjizi was struck, sent flying backward, blood spilling from the corners of his mouth. He struggled to pull himself up from the ground. Wuxin, I already said I would compensate you. What more could you possibly want? I let out a cold, sharp laugh. My tone carried a chill that pierced to the bone. Compensation? Ha! If compensation were truly effective, then let me kill you first, and I shall compensate you with a coffin. Does that sound acceptable? To dare insult my daughter. Your useless treasures are worth nothing. You must pay with your life. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. Clenching my iron fist, I struck out violently toward Tianjizi. Seeing that I had opened with a lethal strike, Tianjizi realized I had truly unsheathed my killing intent, and he no longer held anything back. Wuxin, do you truly believe that after 1,000 years I would be without a contingency plan? Since you are determined to perish alongside me, then I shall grant you your wish. He turned toward the void and roared, Fellow Taoists, why do you not manifest and lend a hand? The space before us began to ripple with waves of distortion. From within those ripples, 7 or 8 figures emerged, shrouded in a putrid, deathly aura. Their vitality flickered like a dying candle in the wind, yet each of these existences exuded a terrifyingly formidable pressure. It was clear that they were all 8 tribulation quasi-emperors. Fellow Taoist Wuxin, it has been a long time. They spoke with hollow courtesy, though their eyes were filled with mockery. Suddenly, a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering killing array, capable of obscuring the sun and moon, erupted from beneath my feet. It spread rapidly across the surrounding expanse. Watching the 8 figures appear, and a terrifying formation enveloped me, my expression remained as calm and stagnant as a still lake. These are all powerful figures from my own era, 1,000 years ago. It has indeed been a long time, fellow Taoists. Seeing my continued composure, the corners of Tianjizi's mouth curled into a sneer. Wuxin, are you not even the slightest bit surprised by this turn of events? Should I be? My tone remained unfailingly indifferent. Toward all that was happening, I did not feel even a shred of astonishment. Because the moment I stepped foot into this land, I had long since sensed their presence. Especially when I noticed their bodies swirling with the aura of Tian Meng, and realized this array had been prepared specifically to target me. I had already pierced through the true nature of this entire ordeal. It turns out that from beginning to end, their true objective was to target me and my daughter, and every scheme to harm her, there was not one among them who had not played a part. As the daughter of great emperor, Qing Shui naturally carried with her a significant portion of the heavenly Tao's fortune. Thus they shielded and favored Lak Yinyan, seizing the opportunity to suppress my daughter, all to strip away the karmic fortune she possessed. They intended to siphon that fortune to reinforce the destiny of Lak Yinyan, thereby increasing the probability of their own ascension to the imperial throne in the future. My seclusion for the past 1,000 years became the perfect opening for them. They colluded with these wretched old thieves, squandering a millennium to lay down this primordial slaughter array. Had I failed my seclusion and perished, they would have devoured and refined Lac Yin Yen. And if I succeeded, they were not afraid. They could simply harness the power of the slaughter array to rebel against and slay a formidable enemy, myself. They would then employ the heaven-swallowing demonic art to consume and refine my physical form. After all, the great emperor represents the ultimate mandate of heaven in this world. It is simply that their calculations were gravely flawed. They vastly underestimated my true strength, while simultaneously overestimating their own importance. Mere, decaying corpses. Broken relics daring to challenge a true great emperor like me, Wumeng me? It is nothing more than a delusional fantasy. Enough useless chatter. Heavenly mystery elder, why bother wasting more words on him? Everyone present here is a battle-hardened existence. Without a hint of hesitation, they all simultaneously unleashed their supreme divine arts, suppressing them toward me. Watching their boundless confidence, I found it utterly laughable and pathetic. From the corners of my mouth, I coldly uttered 2 words, and gripping the ruthless sword, I swung it casually into the void before me. The next instant, the blood of a quasi-emperor sprayed across the heavens, accompanied by a miserable shriek. The physical body of the nether quasi-emperor was cleaved in 2 by my blade. A quasi-emperor, yet he did not have the slightest opportunity to retaliate. His soul vanished into the rain of blood, utterly annihilated. Witnessing this scene, Tianjizi and the remaining 8 quasi-emperors were struck with absolute terror, their eyes filled with overwhelming dread. How is this possible? I had slain a high-level quasi-emperor with a single strike. Is the chasm between a quasi-emperor and a great emperor truly this terrifying? Yet the situation had already become like an arrow released from a bow. There was no turning back, so they had no choice but to grit their teeth and unleash all their divine abilities, desperately launching a final frenzied assault upon me. Tianjizi also frantically mobilized the full power of the Grand Formation, exerting a crushing pressure down upon me. Facing such a scene, I simply released the entirety of my aura. My heavenly might surged like a vast ocean from the depths of my imperial core, and with my hand tightened around the blade, I swept my sword horizontally against those 8 decrepit old men. The sword radiance was peerless and brilliant, its momentum, like snapping dry branches and sweeping away fallen leaves. Although these 8 are lauded as the supreme powerhouses of heaven and earth, the chasm between a quasi-emperor and a great emperor is truly an insurmountable gap. Thus, even with the strength bolstered by the Grand Formation, they were fundamentally no match for me. One by one, they were all crushed and suppressed under my hand. Very quickly, these quasi-emperor ancestors were utterly defeated and collapsed. Their faces were etched with absolute terror as they stared at me. How could your strength be this terrifying? I did not bother to explain, merely swinging my sword again and again to usher them into the cycle of reincarnation. If you have such questions, go ask the King of Hell when you reach the underworld. I collected their severed heads, arranging them in a neat orderly row side by side, but I did not immediately shatter their true spirits, choosing instead to cast a divine sealing art upon them. Having finished these tasks, I turned to face the mastermind who had incited all these sins. Tianjizi's voice trembled with panic. Wu Wuxian brother, I was wrong. I do not want to die. Please spare my life. I smiled. My tone was as frigid as an ice abyss. I am a great emperor. I am not a soft-hearted weakling who would spare the likes of you. As the words fell, without a moment's hesitation, I transformed my finger into sword chi, and with a single strike, I severed his head completely. Afterward, I placed his head neatly on top of the pile. I turned to look at my dear daughter, Shuer. Do you like the gift father has prepared for you? Looking at the 9 blood-soaked quasi-emperor heads arranged on the pedestal, the girl's complexion turned somewhat pale. Clearly, she had not yet had the time to adapt. But at the very least, I have successfully avenged her. A glimmer of joy flashed in her eyes. She nodded. Thank you, father. Seeing this, I chuckled with smug satisfaction, then cast a cold gaze toward the Tianji Dao sect. The survivors, sensing the murderous intent in my eyes, were seized by absolute terror, and began kowtowing incessantly, begging for mercy. We realize our error, Lord Weiying. We beg you, spare our lives. I struck with a single palm, crushing the leader into a pile of gore. It was not me whom you harmed. Why then, do you offer your apologies to this emperor? Hearing this, the crowd immediately understood and scrambled to turn, kowtowing repeatedly toward my daughter instead. Senior Sister Shengzhou, we were wrong. We truly know our mistakes. Please, in your great magnanimity, spare us. My daughter's expression remained cold and impassive. She did not bother to spare a glance for the weeping of those vermin, and only stepped forward slowly, taking the Weiying sword from my hand to stand directly before Xuan Ye and Luo Yanyan. Seeing the burning, unconcealed murderous intent in her eyes, Xuanye and Luo Yanyan were finally struck with absolute panic. Xuanye feigned deep affection. Shengshui, I know I was wrong. Can you give me one more chance? It was this harlot who seduced me. I was temporarily bewitched by a devil. Rest assured, from this moment on, I will serve you with complete sincerity. In this life and the next, I shall never depart from your side. Upon hearing this, Luo Yanyan panicked and screamed, Senior Sister Shengzhu, it has nothing to do with me. It was him. He was the one who refused to leave me alone. Ah! I pointed directly at Xuanye, my tone full of feigned indignation, then collapsed to my knees before my daughter. Shengshu, I was merely a victim as well. All of this was ordered in secret by the old ancestor. But I know that, regardless, I have caused you immense pain. I dare not beg for your forgiveness, but I only hope you might grant me a chance to atone for my sins. My words sounded truly desperate, and my eyes shimmered with tears. It was difficult to find a single flaw in the performance. Xuanye, hearing this, knelt down to follow suit. That is correct. Shengshu, we hope you can give us a chance to atone. A flicker of hesitation flashed in my daughter's eyes. Do you truly wish to atone? Seeing that my daughter seemed to be softening, the two of them were overjoyed, their hearts racing with madness. Yes, we are willing to atone. The voices fell abruptly silent, for a blade of light had just flashed, and the Wu-Ying sword had severed the throats of them both. Why could they feel such a piercing coldness radiating from their throats? Their eyes were filled with absolute disbelief. For the first time in 100 years, my daughter finally wore a smile. Did you not say you wished to atone for your sins? I find your physical vessels to be quite useful. As the words left my lips, she unleashed the heaven-devouring demonic art I had bestowed upon her, seizing them both and refining them into nothingness in a mere heartbeat. Seeing her decisive actions, I let out a satisfied laugh. She is indeed the daughter of this emperor. She possesses true resolve. Witnessing such a gruesome scene, the remaining disciples of the Tianji Dao sect scrambled to flee. But with a single glare, I unleashed my pressure, crushing them until they collapsed helplessly to the ground. They could only watch in terror as my daughter slowly approached, seizing them one by one to refine them all. Their pleas for mercy and desperate curses echoed without end. Yet she turned a deaf ear to them all, coldly repeating the ritual of refinement. I lounged comfortably, savoring dragon meat, while keeping watch and providing protection for my beloved daughter. I do not know how much time had passed, but in the end, my daughter had completely slaughtered and refined every single disciple of the Tianji Dao sect present. Thereafter, under my guidance and assistance, she proceeded to refine the 9 quasi-emperors I had already prepared for her. This battle had seen the refinement of tens of thousands, the theft of the entire providence of the Daughter of Heaven's mandate, and the additional refinement of 9 quasi-emperors. My daughter's cultivation base surged like a tempest. In just a few short months, she went from nothingness straight to the peak of the supreme realm. She was but a single step away from the quasi-emperor realm, but regrettably, the area had been drained of the blood essence required for her to continue. Just as she began to show signs of regret, I reached out my hand toward her. Father, what are you doing? Qingxue asked, filled with confusion. I turned back with a smile. Father is taking you to kill. The 9 quasi-emperors who once ambushed me, some had only sent their avatars here. When I suppressed them, I had conveniently left a mark upon their true bodies. I had been too busy protecting you these past few days to send them to their graves. Now that you are on the verge of becoming a quasi-emperor, you are just a fraction away. It is time for them to pay for their sins with their lives. Thus I brought my daughter to track them to their very lairs, where they knelt, begging for mercy. I did not even spare them a glance. She took the ruthless sword from my hand. With a face as cold as ice, she pierced through their chests, and with practiced ease, swallowed them whole to begin the refinement. In the blink of an eye, after consuming the physical remains of the 3 high-level quasi-emperors, my daughter's cultivation realm advanced as naturally as water flowing into a river, breaking through directly to the quasi-emperor stage.
Wow.
I have broken through. Thank you, Father. She was so excited that she planted a kiss on my cheek. I blushed in embarrassment, but seeing my daughter radiating with renewed vitality, my heart, which had been tightly coiled in worry, finally relaxed. I gently stroked her hair and took her hand in mine. We stepped onto the dragon soul that had been enslaved by my power. Father, where are we going next? She asked with a gentle tone. I cast my gaze toward the distant horizon. There lies a vast, endless sea of flowers. We shall go wherever our hearts desire. From this day forward, no one shall ever dare to bully you again. I pulled my daughter close, and the dragon roared, soaring straight into the 9 heavens, leaving the ruins of the Heaven Extreme Dao sect shattered beneath our feet. The remains of the land lay scattered, and the great mountains had crumbled into dust. But all that filth and ruin no longer has any concern for us.